Now, Andy McCarthy, National Review Online, posted a story back on the 14th of January this year, and the headline is Terror Threat Rises. De Blasio and the Islamists blind the NYPD. Now, this story has to do with an ISIS attack in Jakarta that happened on January 13th. ISIS claimed credit for it, killed at least 2 civilians, in addition to the 5 suicide terrorists. And those attacks follow hard on the jihadist bombing earlier in Istanbul, which killed 10 people. These, in turn, come quickly after the jihad struck Philadelphia, San Bernardino, Cologne, and Paris. The attacks are frequent, and after every one, don't you dare say Islam had anything to do with it. Don't you dare! You don't paint with a brush. That's not who we are. This is not representative of our values, or some such drivel. And then there's the story President Obama somehow managed not to mention in his State of the Union show on Tuesday night back in January. Federal authorities have apprehended an Iraqi refugee who turns out to be an ISIS supporter who was allegedly plotting to blow up malls in Houston. Remember now, this is a dispatch from January. The Justice Department says that the jihadist, whose name happens to be Omar Faraj Saeed al-Hardan Skyhook, was coordinating with another Iraqi refugee living in California, Oz Mohammed Yunus al-Jayeb. Al-Jayeb is in custody in Sacramento, charged with making false statements in an international terrorism investigation. He's a Palestinian born in Iraq. He was accepted into the U.S. as a refugee in 2012. He has traveled at least twice to Syria, where he joined affiliates of al-Qaeda and ISIS in the fighting. So the threat of jihadists embedded or radicalizing in our midst grows more pronounced every day. We know that it is happening. We are tracking these clowns. What a perfect time, then, for New York City to willfully blind itself to indicators of terrorism. Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York, on January 13th of this year, caved in a lawsuit brought by Islamic activists who demanded that the NYPD make like the White House and pretend that Islam had nothing to do with terrorism committed by Muslims who proclaim with immense scriptural support that they are acting on behalf of Islam. But we're being told, no. We must all pretend that Islam has nothing to do with terrorism committed by Muslims who claim they are acting on behalf of Islam. Among the concessions the city of New York made in caving in this lawsuit back in January, the NYPD will no longer be permitted to rely on radicalization in the West. That is a report from 2007 that was put together by studying actual terrorism cases. Intelligence officers then outlined a pattern they had detected that could alert the cops to signs that an ostensibly ordinary person could be evolving into a jihadist. The New York mayor caved in a lawsuit and promised that report would never again be consulted. Again, radicalization in the West, a 2007 report which studied actual terrorism cases. Patterns were found that could detect and alert police to signs that an apparently ordinary, peace-loving individual could be a jihadist. So that research was cast aside. The mayor promised not to use it. And the basic surveillance involved was thrown out. And the police were not allowed to any longer use any of that research back in January. So what we have here, this is in Brussels happens, and a number of other acts of terror happen. And Ted Cruz comes along. You know what? We need to re-implement this program where the NYPD was surveilling neighborhoods to find and isolate, identify examples of ordinary people that were in line, giving off indications they were prone to jihad. And I got the reaction to Cruz is it defies common sense. Trying to explain it's coming from everywhere. Coming from the mayor of New York, coming from the police commissioner, coming from Obama in Argentina, it's coming from Hillary Clinton, it's coming from everywhere. And in the realm of common sense, forget the politics of this. I guess it's hard to do that. But if you look at this as just straight out crime, and forget that there's a political, ideological, even religious component to it, just look at it as crime. Listen, people are blowing up other people. People are blowing up buildings, public buildings, and we are actively telling ourselves we cannot investigate. We cannot do any research to find out who might be in line to do it next, because that somehow is violating somebody's human rights, civil rights, what have you. It makes no sense. It makes no sense that we are not permitted to use law enforcement to prevent future acts like this. And the reason that we can't is because they are committed by one specific group of people that we will never publicly acknowledge or admit are engaging in these. It just doesn't compute. This, by the way, just throw this on the pile of things that has a lot of people in this country wanting to throw Washington overboard. Throw this on the pile of things that just doesn't make sense to average, ordinary, everyday people. Because it doesn't make any sense one way or the other. And there is no honesty. When you ask people, why are you willing to not use the tools that you're... Why is surveilling a neighborhood where known acts of terror could effervesce? Why is it? Well, because we not our values. It's not who we are. What do you mean not who we are? What are you afraid? Are you afraid of these people? Do you secretly support these people? Do you want their votes? What is it? Why deny this? Is it just political correctness? Is that all it is? Or is it fear? Well, I don't know. Whatever it is, it makes no sense whatsoever. Back to the audio sound bites. Try this. CNN Today, Chris Cuomo. Don't forget this guy. I'm telling you, I am never, as long as I live, I'm going to forget the sound bite from this guy on Monday about communism. It was just mine. I still can't get over it. Chris Cuomo asking somebody, isn't it about time the Castros got their act in gear? Don't they know that communism is about individual liberty and freedom and lifting everybody up equally? Not, whatever he said, humiliating them or whatever. But isn't it about lifting them up? Isn't it communism about everybody being equal with great economic opportunity? Really? Does he really think that? Is that what he's been taught communism is? Anyway, he still has his job, so apparently nobody else was bothered by it. And he's talking to former Islamic extremist and author Maajid Nawaz and Michael Weiss, the senior editor of the Daily Beast, about the attacks in Belgium. And Cuomo said the French are quick to point out that Belgium is different. Geography, population density, it's farther behind than the French are in dealing with the homegrown terror threat. Is that a fair criticism, Majid?
The security services are absolutely inundated. There is too much to do. If you just look at Brussels with those 100 fighters who've gone to join, imagine all of their siblings, all of their cousins, all of their neighbors and friends, and imagine how many people that is just in the city of Brussels to monitor. The global jihadist insurgency has hit home in Europe, but this was the 8th of 7 other attacks in the month of March alone across the world. There's 2 in Pakistan, 2 in Turkey, 1 in Mali, 1 in Nigeria, and 1 in the Ivory Coast. This is something which is unprecedented.
Yeah, people better wake up here. Europe is overwhelmed, is what this guy is saying. An invasion has taken place. ISIS is not just attacking in Syria or in Iraq. ISIS has moved to the West. ISIS hit the seat of the European Union. ISIS, in this attack, basically blew up utopia. As far as the left is concerned, Brussels, Belgium, Europe, European Union, utopia. And ISIS hit them. And they're not going to stop there. And this CNN terror expert, Europe inundated with third and fourth generation jihadis. Why do you think that is? How did that happen, by the way? Can anybody say open borders? Can anybody say we must not discriminate? Can anybody say this is not our values? Can anybody say we must not be judgmental? Can anybody say anything the average American leftist says? Here's Michael Weiss, this is a Daily Beast guy, reacting to that.
It's not just a generational thing. They have established connections, friendships, acquaintanceships with all manner of veteran jihadis. These people have been living in Europe for decades, and now they have these third and fourth generation knock-on jihadis rising to the fore.
And don't forget the first point made in the sound bites. There are too many of them to monitor. There are too many of them to keep track of. Belgium is not equipped. It's utopia, but it's not equipped. Paris, maybe a little bit more equipped, but what good did it do them?